We're now going to have three different speakers. They'll first come one at a time, and then we'll have a panel discussion involving all four. Our first speaker is Christy Householder. Christy is the Director of Economic Development at Cass County, and she's an experienced director with a history of working in government relations. I told Christy that, I was talking about the digital footprint for all of the local economic development officials. I basically got a printout of their LinkedIn profile. So, Christy, I'm really using your LinkedIn profile. So if you want to change that digital profile, we can help you. But Christy, welcome. Each of our this is our attempt to understand the manufacturing and the challenges at the level of the local economic developer officials' perspective. So, Christy, you get the podium.
Should get the podium first?
Yes.
Okay. Good morning. Thanks for having us. To start out, anybody understand what economic development is and does? A lot of misconceptions sometimes on economic development. But mainly, I think our job is to help companies and industry to connect to especially government entities or education or actually anything that you really need. I've actually helped a company find a company to cater their functions. So nothing's off the table. So I guess I'll open it up for that. The first question that we were asked, is our top 10 industry and our top 10 ag companies. So since we're mainly manufacturing here, I believe, I'll just start there. Tyson, which is both ag and manufacturing, has about 1,800 employees. Kaufman Engineering, they're a wire harness company. They have about 450 employees. Carter Fuel Systems, unfortunately, has been hit by the Chinese market, and they've had to decrease about 200 employees in the last 3 years. But they're still one of our major employers at about 250 employees. Small Parts is actually a company. Their headquarters is in Logansport, Indiana, and they do different parts and supplies for the automotive industry. Affiliated Services is actually a cleaning service company that makes products in their facility that helps the industrial cleanup. That's probably our top 5. Let's just go with that, right? The main focus that I have recently been working with our current industry that's in Logansport is mainly workforce. Does everybody have workforce issues? Yeah. So it seems like that's really the topic. And from my perspective, for the last, I've been doing this for quite some time, 15 years, it seems like there was always training grants available for those that were not employed or were underemployed, but not for your existing workforce that was already had a good job, just needed to skill up maybe one level and go to the next. So we heard those, our industry was saying, hey, we need some money, we need some money. So we did go and we worked with our workforce provider and did get some grants. We have probably 4 or 5 that has training available, funds for training. So if you have needs in our region, I don't know if you're outside our region, if there's funds available, but I'd be happy to help you find those if they are. But so we heard, so we have the money, but now you guys are so busy making product that it's hard for you to take time to allow your employees to train. So if there's a way we can find a hybrid of letting them work for half a day and go train in the afternoon or vice versa, because that's another issue, is a lot of times the people have families, so they want to be coaches and they want to be doing things with their children. So they don't necessarily like to make the time in the evening to attend classes. Or maybe those classes aren't available. Or we can actually do training that is inside in your facility. And maybe we can just customize training to do that. So there are funding. So obviously that's probably been my main thing that I've been working on. I don't want to, are we just doing 5 minutes each? Yeah, okay.
Thank you, Christy. We'll have time for a panel discussion. Our next speaker is Paul Jackson. Paul's Director for Economic Development at Benton County. So I'll let Paul describe Benton County, give us a quick introduction.
Good morning. Thank you very much. Quick introduction for Benton County. Much like Shan, who's Clinton County, Frankfort area, and Christy, who has Logansport up in her neighborhood, they both have towns that are larger than our entire population for our county. We have 8,700 people. That's it. 94% of our footprint is agriculture. So obviously we are heavy in the ag department. It's actually kind of baffling to me that only 9.5% of our workforce actually works in the ag market, though. We have 17.4 that actually work in the manufacturing business, your guys' neighborhood. We are diverse as far as our companies go. We start in like the forestry department with KA Components. They make trusses, they make walls. A lot of the houses that are built in your subdivisions and stuff, chances are the trusses are all made in Benton County. We have plastic mold injections over in Oxford. We have drug plastics. If you take prescription pills, chances are the bottle that you get, the bottle was actually made in Benton County. A lot of steel fabrication, and that's, I say a lot. Technically, a lot of our, the majority of our companies, the majority of our major manufacturers, they have anywhere between 45 to 80, 85 people. So a lot of your manufacturing companies and stuff out here that, I mean, you have SIA with, you know, I can't even imagine. I mean, your population is bigger than our county. So we have like Powell Systems, they make steel tubs, Holscher Products, and American Garden Works that make, they make several, they make a lot of garden stuff. Wire forms and stuff like that. Road Truck, that's probably our major manufacturer right there. They make truck bodies for Class 3 trucks. They're heavy into the welding area and stuff like that. We also have, on the opposite side of that, we have textiles. So a lot of the Venetian blinds you'll see or the blinds, the shades and stuff like that you'll find in hotels are a lot of times made at Oxford House, which is in Fowler. On the other side of that, we have, it's not necessarily manufacturing per se like you guys are used to, but we have 2.5 dairies right now. I say half because we're in the process of building another dairy. We have 2 dairies that each house about 500 milking head, and we have another one, like I said, that's being built right now that's that's going to house another 5,000 head. And then, of course, you have farmers. They manufacture a lot of the products that you eat every day. Being in Benton County, obviously, we also, if you've ever driven up and down 65 or up 52, 41, any of those roads, you'll obviously notice the wind turbines. Wind manufacturer, wind turbines actually started in Indiana, in Benton County. We wrote a lot of the legislation. We did a lot of that stuff. At this point right now, we're actually filming a commercial for wind stuff. It's going to be a nationwide commercial. I'm really kind of excited, so thank God I won't be in it. But basically, that is Benton County in its whole, so as far as the manufacturing side.
The third participant in our panel is Sheridan, who's the Executive Director of Clinton County's Chamber of Commerce. And I was looking at Shan's digital profile, and I saw he had this weekly E-Factor broadcast, which was interesting. So maybe you can tell us a little about E-Factor too, Shan.
Sure. Thank you very much. I appreciate that. The E-Factor is the E's of your community, the attributes of your community, not the attributes of your community. Encouragement, engagement, education, employment, of course, and entrepreneurialism. And we do a broadcast each and every week, and we interview small business, large business. We interview educators, and it's a 30-minute program that's broadcast on 4 of our regional radio stations and then goes live on Facebook each and every week. We believe it's an opportunity to engage our community in what's happening with entrepreneurialism and employment, and of course, engaging our educators as well. Speaking of education, as Christy just mentioned, I was at IUK. I know that's a nasty word maybe to say around here, but I was at IUK this morning. We had our 529 Promise Walk into the Future. We had 500 kindergartners that are going through IUK this morning, learning about nursing and a variety of different degree opportunities. And you say, well, why in the world are you dealing with kindergartners? Well, let me tell you something. They are our future workforce. And if we don't start getting more serious about early childhood development, 90% of our brain is developed, 90% of our brain is developed before the age of 5. 90%. And if we don't become more, I think, engaged in early learning and getting our kids, and not only that, but moving our attitudes and trying to hopefully encourage them to go down a career path that's challenging and one that is going to make a lot of sense for them. And how do we connect them with their skills and their sets and what they like and enjoy to do and doing? So we're really excited about, we won a $500,000 grant recently in early childhood development, and we're very excited about what's going to happen there. Now, economic development goes right along, and we have been very fortunate. Corey knocked it out of the park today. Thank you, Corey. Frito-Lay is our largest employer in Clinton County. About 1,400 folks that walk in and out of those doors each and every day on 3 shifts. They do an outstanding job in our community. They're community partners since 1980. Our community was a railroad community, like many communities in Indiana. And when the railroad started to dry up in the 1950s and employment started to decrease in the railroad, our leadership at that time, our mayor at that time, there was not really economic development board, it was a chamber of commerce. They decided to put together a group called the Economic Advancement Foundation, and they started going after a variety of different businesses. And our mayor, Ken Powers, in 1956, went up to Chicago and was able to knock on a hotel room door of Peter Paul's executive, who was there for a trade show. And he was able to encourage and attract Peter Paul to come to the Midwest. They were looking for a site they were going to build near Chicago. They did. It was in Frankfort, Indiana, and Peter Paul built in 1959. Thus started the line of economic development in our community. We say in Clinton County and Frankfort, we're the community that feeds the state, that feeds the world, because our economic development action and our economic development engagement really centers around food and agriculture. Frito-Lay, our largest employer. And you heard how many bags of chips are made there. Oh, and by the way, about 5 years ago, they were talking about this expansion. Actually, it's been going on longer than that. But about 5 years ago, I remember meeting with Kathy Alfano, and I remember saying, Kathy, because we didn't lose it. We were vying for Funyuns, all right? And we were looking for the Funyun line. That's my favorite snack of Frito-Lay. And how many like Funyuns? Anybody like Funyuns? Oh, yeah, baby, I love Funyuns. And now we're going to get flavored Funyuns, right? So when we didn't get it, Kathy says, Shan, we lost Beloit, Wisconsin's going to take that. So, sorry, maybe next time. Well, guess what? Funyuns are coming to Frankfort, right, Corey? Awesome. And I'm so excited. If you've ever had a Cheeto right off the line, hot, warm, nothing like it, is there? It's amazing, incredible. I can't imagine what a Funyun's going to taste like, right? You're going to let me in to get a Funyun, I imagine. I would appreciate it. All right, thank you. Well, Corey did a fantastic job. But what's happening, not only there, new investments in Clinton County, because of investments like Frito-Lay, people started looking at Frankfurt more seriously back in the 80s and the 90s and in the 2000s. And we were able to land a few years ago ConAgra, who just built a 1.6 million square foot facility. You can put all 31 NFL football stadiums in the footprint of this place. It's amazing. And they are the world's largest food distribution center is right there. We have the world's largest salty snack food facility if you combine the core plant and the east plant, and they're getting ready for this large expansion. One of the things that Christy mentioned and both Paul mentioned in our region are really workforce. That's the big issues that we struggle with. But what are our existing companies doing about it? Frito-Lay and other companies are investing back in our community, like what Corey just mentioned. We're building a new $5.5 million park downtown. We're getting ready to roll out a housing development in our community. So all those things tie into economic development when it comes to quality of life and strengthening our amenities. But it starts with our attitudes. And that's why we believe it's so important to have these discussions and these conversations so that our region grows and more robustly, and that as our region grows, our state grows, and that's certainly a significant part of economic development for the state of Indiana. When it comes to manufacturing and automation, Corey shared that brilliantly this morning with you. Automation is a key. Sensoring is a key. All of these things are incredibly important to not only Clinton County and a rural community, but it's also important to us as a region, and we could not be more excited that WHIN, Wabash Heartland Innovation Network, has taken the lead, a global lead in that, and we appreciate the partnership with Purdue. Thank you very much. We look forward to answering your questions.
Okay, so I'm going to get us started with the panel discussion. This is a wonderful example of both implementation and the process of implementation of automation so that you enable value creation at the individual employee level, as well as perspectives from Christy, Paul, and Shan. So I want to just get the ball rolling, but I really want all of you to jump in with questions. Now, for all of you, I wanted to sort of get you to reflect on some of the issues that Corey brought up were, how do you prepare the workforce to take advantage of opportunities to add more value, to have more value-added jobs, et cetera. So so there's that process. And the other process is, all of you are at very low unemployment rates, so finding people to make that movement is probably difficult. So how are you managing? So how did Frito-Lay get this going, and how did the rest of you think your individual companies in your area are going down the journey like Frito-Lay?
The approach we took, we really knew we had a lot of talent internally, so we developed a lot more intense and extensive training, where we were investing a lot of time to ensure that our operators knew the equipment inside and out, were able to functionally run it, were able to do some light maintenance, and really then owned the equipment. So that's where the separation of the teams really helped, because then you had somebody who ran the same equipment every single day and truly owned it and had the tools to maintain it and run it properly.
And on the Lido side, what are the things you're facing as you think about getting the employee base to start thinking about how automation and all of this technology can actually help them go up the value chain, generate better quality jobs, et cetera? What are the hurdles you're facing?
So I would say that's multifaceted. Obviously, you were talking about kindergartners, but we're spending a lot of time in the high schools, probably 8th grade, kind of doing encouraging career exploration, but trying to get those, especially 9th and 10th graders, to start thinking about careers in advanced manufacturing. So we had to bring the parents along, because parents think manufacturing is dirty, or whatever their conception of manufacturing is. It's not obviously always good. So we have to bring the parents along as well. So there's education of the students and of the parents. We have a program, another university, but through Ivy Tech, and we have about 200, I believe, in our region, that the students are going through basically like an internship. They'll do school in the morning and then go to work in a manufacturer in the afternoon, but also go into Ivy Tech to learn how to use the equipment. That way they're ready for those jobs that are going to be available here in the next, in 5 years, how many are we going to have retired and moving out? So I would say locally, we're focusing on the high schoolers.
And to piggyback off of what Christy said, we have the workforce, our work ethics education certificate as well, which is a governor's certificate that if you, and this is the biggest part of this whole thing, if you have a 98% attendance rate as a senior and you have maintained a 2.0 grade point average and you have certain references and referrals, and I believe it's about 6 hours of community service and about 6 hours of school service, you will graduate with an honor. A workforce ethics certification, which our employers in our industrial park have agreed to make sure that those applicants, if they come in and apply, will go to the top of the chain. So also, we've had some incentives, maybe 25 cents or 50 cents more an hour if they complete this. The biggest thing in all of this, and with our employers, have been, we love all of that, but the 98% attendance rate is really attractive because that is where we struggle. Can you get me people? Can you get me people here on time? And can you get me people that will come to work consistently? And we struggle with that in our culture. So we have partnered with Aaron down here also with Purdue University and MMP to look at how we even go beyond that and look at folks that have been in corrections, and how do we take those people and give a second chance folks an opportunity, our folks that have had issues in their life, how do we give them a second chance and get them involved in manufacturing? Christy hit it right on the nail. One of the biggest obstacles and challenges that we face is just the perception of manufacturing, and how even parents, and I've heard this discussion, parents say, well, you don't want to work there, don't end up like me, I'm not going to, and I'm like, wow, well, let me just remind you, sir, that you've got food on the table for your kids, you got a pretty nice house, you got 2 cars, you got a boat and a camper, all that was paid through your employment at a manufacturer. So don't knock it because you're telling your kid possibly not, maybe your child is not going to do that, but certainly don't discourage them because there's great opportunity, as Corey said, to advance in your corporation. So we look forward to second and third generation folks that will be coming up in the manufacturing sector.
Actually, I spent 2.5 years ago, I started this position, but before that, I was customer service at a local factory up in White County. And I honestly did the exact same thing as what you're saying. I don't want my kid being like me. I just assume you never work in a factory. At this point, one of them just graduated Indiana Tech University, and he is now with an engineering degree, and he is working in a factory. Of course, he's making a lot more money than I am. More power to him. Yeah. But, and actually right now, as far as the automation goes, that is one of his jobs. He's an ME right now, so he's all about the idea of how are we going to not lay people off, but we're going to automate more. We're going to do an awful lot more of that stuff. I mean, that kid is on the cutting edge right now, and I mean, I just stand back and whew.
Great.
As far as Benton County goes, we have a lot of the same things that you guys are talking about as far as we're actually implementing, trying to implement that. We're trying to get that ball rolling as far as the governor's deal. But we also utilize Ivy Tech also. A lot of our workforce, a lot of the kids that aren't going to be going on to college, to get a 4-year degree, they're going to need to know how to weld, how to do all those other wonderful things and stuff like that. But at the same time, getting more and more into the automation, going to an Ivy Tech, they're actually learning instead of how to weld. Of course, they know how to weld at this point, but they're going to learn how to use the robotics that actually do the welding. It's a huge importance. You're going to have to if you're going to succeed.
So while we're waiting for questions from the audience, one of the themes that there's a lot of focus from WHIN and other entities is the idea of IoT. It was brought up by the first two speakers that we had, the Internet of Things. Now, certainly there's that, and then there are these studies that show up. In fact, even this morning when I was looking at the paper, they were talking about, robots taking over various jobs, front office, sort of the whole job of a cashier is disappearing because you'll check out by using your smartphone and other things. So is there anxiety amongst potential families and people in the workforce about the future of automation, or are they thinking of it as a positive? So what are you hearing from them? Are you hearing anxiety, or are you hearing enthusiasm? This is Purdue, so we're enthusiastic about technology. But is that enthusiasm shared by everybody, or is there some apprehension?
I'll start that real quick, just because I'm on the opposite spectrum than you guys are. But I mean, a lot of our farmers, they're kind of relying on that because a lot of their kids and the stuff, they're growing up, going to four-year degrees or getting technical, and they're moving off to other places. A lot of our farmers are looking for, give me more of that robotics. And it's not really robotics, but I mean, give me more of that, that AI that they can, hit a button and they can still multitask while they're combining or planting seeds. 97% or 94% ag footprint, they got to cover a lot of ground. And they don't have the help that they used to where, them growing up, their families had, they had 9 or 10 brothers and sisters that all worked the farm. Now they have 1 or 2 kids and they're off to college and not helping. So anything that they can do to get a leg up and work the market while they're working a field.
Yeah, I would say, and when I heard of IoT, I thought there was a couple letters missing. It should be idiot, because I didn't know what it meant. I was like, what's IoT? And someone shared, because I'm from Louisiana, so you have to bear with me. But when I heard that, and I'm thinking, well, that's something we do every day. I mean, Internet of Things is every day. I mean, everything seems to be connected today. And I think it is something that there is both. There's some anxiety, but I think there's a lot of excitement. Our young people, they've grown up with it. My grandchildren have grown up with it. They're not afraid of it. They'll tackle it. It is the parents and the grandparents that struggle a little bit more, I think, with it. And I think it is a really an opportunity in our culture right now as we see the change as the baby boomer, especially I'm that late baby boomer. I think as we grow into this multicultural mindset of Internet of Things, that we don't limit the opportunities that our kids and our grandkids have by casting a negative attitude towards it. But I do think that we need to be careful that we don't lose the Internet, and I say IOP, the Internet of people. I think relationships are so important, and I think it is so important for us not to lose focus on that, because I think a machine can do some great things, but I really believe putting the value on the person that is pushing the buttons that make the machine happen, that create the software, and I hope and pray that we'll be tracking that way as well.
Christy?
So I would say that we're humans and we're not really great about change. I mean, and so I think it's different from everybody, but I would agree with both what these guys said. I think the kids are going to embrace it and kind of do better with it, but people my age or older are going to be a little reluctant, a little scared, a little worrisome about what kind of information is out there on them or with the products that they use. But I think my opinion, I guess, would be that we're going to understand things better as we learn from these, the Internet of Things, especially the data that we're going to be getting from all these sensors and all these different applications that can be applied. We're going to be very smart people. I think we're just be smart overall because we'll have the data to back it up.
So I wanted to mention, Shan mentioned the Internet of People. I just read a couple of days ago the Internet of Rats. And I'll tell you the story. This is at MIT, where they found that rats were very good at detecting landmines because they can go on a mine and not set it off, and they can detect it. So what they wanted to do was to detect where all did the rat run. So the rat has a sensor. So you
Wow.
detect the rat as it runs through all the mines, and places that it doesn't detect a mine is a safe place for you to walk, right? So that's the Internet of Rats. So don't let that vision scare you, but the Internet of Rats is a good vision. Okay, so just an aside. Okay, so
Great.
Corey, one of the things that was mentioned was this whole notion of manufacturing and the vision of manufacturing. And then we see pictures of you at your Frito-Lay's new facility. That's a far cry from any facility you can think of that would be manufacturing and dirty and this and that and all.
Yeah.
It's a clean facility with a lot of automation. So are you using that as a showcase to get people to think about, I mean, you guys have products to make, of course, but at the same time, is there a role you're playing in encouraging people to think about the future of manufacturing by looking at your new site?
I mean, really, locally, it's more about just our workforce and ensuring that they embrace it. So, we had discussions around the Internet of People. It's really, that's where it had to start. We had to go get our teams to trust what we were doing and trust that, through a headcount reduction didn't mean people were losing their jobs. It meant slower hiring. It meant actually, at the end of the day, people had better jobs, more opportunity for higher paying jobs. So we haven't necessarily broadcast it throughout other industry, but we do share ideas between plants. Whenever we do have a new automation install coming, we typically bring employees to another plant that has that automation to talk through with other employees. So it's really kind of a shared base within the PepsiCo industry. But that was very important early on to ensure our teams could see the reason for the transformation, see the reason for the technology, and see the benefit for themselves.
And just a quick rabbit track off of that, what Christy said earlier about what do we do as economic developers, that's one of the areas that we had to do a lot of dispelling of rumors, especially with Frito-Lay, because as soon as automation was announced, if people were, they're going to close, they're going to lose jobs, they're going to lay off people, they're going to change their workforce numbers, and even our elected officials, which were giving the CF1s and voting on abatements and incentives, they're calling, well, what's going on, what's happening? And it's important because our job, one of our roles is to get those people to the table so that everybody can, hey, take a deep breath, calm down, everything's okay, and we're going to get through this together. Automation is a good thing, it's an opportunity, and technical jobs are going to create higher paying jobs, which should create assess value. Elected officials they want one thing, AV, assess value. And if we can create a better assess value, greater assess value, it does change the quality of life. So I appreciate Corey sharing that. So.
Okay, I want to open it up for questions from the audience. I'm a professor, I can keep asking questions all day, but I don't want it to be just my questions. And I have a wonderful set of people here to yes.
I have a question for Corey, which I actually worked with Corey and I worked at Frito before the automation, so I have kind of an insight. And so I see how it was it's probably really easy for the associates that were doing the packing to see the benefits, because if any of you think a bag of chips is light, try dealing with a box of chips. It's really heavy, and so I'm sure they saw a lot of the benefits of, hey, we don't have to move a lot of the boxes of chips by hand anymore. What about your maintenance department or your higher technical positions? What kind of influencing did you have to do with those positions? Or did you hire more, hire a different kind? How did you handle that change?
That is a great question. That is one that I think is an industry issue to some degree. Is hiring. There is a small pool of very talented mechanics that know electrical and mechanical. So we did increase the number of mechanics we had. But then to supplement the work that needed to be done, that was where we trained our technicians to do some of the light maintenance, so that we didn't have to have a mechanic grease bearings, that somebody else can be taught to go lube up a bearing, can be taught to go ensure reflectors are clean, reflectors are pointed correctly, to be able to go listen and hear for small mechanical items that need repair. That was where we actually had our mechanics help in the training when we went through that, to teach them a lot of that light maintenance, to ensure that we could get all of that work completed.
This question is, I'm sorry. This question is for the gentleman from Benton County.
Yeah.
Earlier in the year, the business station I watch was showing a fairly severe hit to the dairy industry in regards to demand. And they were showing, dairies actually closing. So I'm curious, how did your county attract growth in this industry? And did technology have anything to do with it?
Yeah, I'd love to say that I had a whole lot to do with it, and I did not. Actually, the two different companies that we have, one of them is considered, they're called Benton Dairy. They already have 2 locations, one just over the border in Warren County, and then up here. They're expanding right now. They sell strictly to Dannon yogurt. So I'm actually trying to get a processing plant in our county to make it life easier for them so that they can actually ship it over there. The other one is Seven Hills, and they have contracts strictly with a cheese company up in Chicago, so they make the string cheese. They're solid. I mean, they have good contracts and stuff like that. So their expansion, Benton Dairy's expansion, I'd love to say that I had something to do with it, but quite honestly, the owner or the manager there, John, he come walking into my office one day and says, "Hey, we're looking at this spot. What do you think?" Yeah, that's great.
So it sounds
I look like a hero, but I'm not.
It sounds like that these suppliers were supplying to industries within a down industry that actually had growth. The yogurt industry is growing, and so it sounds like that was the answer.
Right.
Any other questions? Yes.
Quick question for Corey. Looking at that expansion, if you're capable of telling us what it cost, and then also how did you come up with a cost justification for it, a payback? I know you said there was some scrap, some labor savings. Were there other factors that went into making that decision?
So the transformation I took you through, it was roughly $35 million cost. And we do see a very significant labor cost reduction that does pay for that through the low skill jobs being reduced. So that got us almost to the IRR hurdle that we need for PepsiCo to sign off. And quite frankly, part of it was we needed to change that site. We needed to make the change for the culture to grow. So there was a piece where we were very, very close economically, but then working for a great company like PepsiCo, they made a great decision to go forward with the change to make the site a better place to work, where we didn't quite hit the financial IRR, but very, very close. I mean, just any business, you still have to have that to a degree, but able to go get that changed.
So, Corey, another question for you. You talked about the people and culture change as a priority before you did anything else. And you showed that sometimes called the grief curve or the change curve that people go through, most people go through, this sense of despair and then slowly coming out of that process. So when people go through those cultural change programs, very often there is a communication strategy and there's a staff engagement strategy to try and make that change much more acceptable through the staff. And I'm wondering what your perceptions were and what your learning was in terms of doing, because the other thing I know about Frito-Lay, you did it in 14 months, and the other guys and ladies in PepsiCo, when they have these big projects, take a lot longer than that. So you had to do all of that people conditioning, if I can call it that, faster than anyone else has been doing it in PepsiCo. So I'm wondering what secrets you can share about the communication engagement with staff in order to make that happen and be prepared for the technical changes that you're bringing about.
Sure. So the biggest part of that was starting early. So it took 14 months for the physical change, but we knew about a year ahead of that we were going to start going through that. So we recognized very early on that we had to start that communication process. And we actually put a full-time person in place we called them the change leader. And their sole job was to take our teams through this training and to work with our teams on being able to overcome the change. So he did a lot of psychological studies. We'd have a lot of site meetings where he would present. It sounds somewhat rudimentary, but even just the psychology of whether you say hello to someone in the morning, when you say hi to someone, when you make that choice whether or not to. So we spent a lot of time on building that skill set with our team to be able to be open and talk through the challenges. And then we set up smaller communication venues to get feedback from the teams, to very openly and honestly talk through the change and what we were planning to do. And then when we were through that first section of change, we would go meet with them again and kind of say, look, this is what we said was happening, this is what did happen, and here's where we are, to just to ensure that trust was there.
Any other questions? So one of the questions I wanted to add, there's sort of a number of changes that are happening, which are sort of those changes are being initiated in Washington, D.C., but they are affecting all of your counties. One is tariffs, which is affecting various things. And the other is sort of, immigration-related issues, which is also affecting. So how has all of that manifested itself in the discussions you're having with the companies in your region? Are the tariffs resulting in more production in your plants? And what is happening with respect to the removal of some of the people who are in the regions, with, regardless of the politics of it? There's the reality of it.
The biggest hit on the tariffs for us is a local farmer. Obviously, all the grain going over to China and stuff, getting hit with a major tariff. Corn prices are pathetic at this point. Input prices are way up there. It's hurting tremendously, and considering I own a farm and cash rent, I hear it every day. As far as the local manufacturing facilities, for the most part, I'm pretty darn sure that the majority of their inventory comes from the U.S. and pretty much stays in the U.S. So that, I don't think it really hurts us very much.
I think it expedited some of our expansions just simply because of not knowing what was going to happen on the bottom line coming into the fourth quarter. So we had some expansions that I think that were being planned. We just had a $35 million expansion from one of our other plants in our industrial park, and that's been on the table for about a year, but it was ramped up dramatically because of all of the rumors of tariff increases, and so that's been an impact. And then when it comes to immigration, we have a very strong Latino population, Hispanic population in our county. They're very hard workers, and that's another dynamic. Education is very important for us to get that English as a second language and get those people up to speed as quickly as possible because they add such a benefit to our workforce. And when we're talking about trying to attract more workforce, we are seeing that. The thing that we are challenged is normally the language barrier. So we're not concerned as much about all of the other things that go on in the political realm, but as much as we are with that language barrier and trying to get those folks to the place where they feel comfortable and they feel that the assimilation is there and that we can get them in the workforce and so that they can grow with our community.
So I would probably just reiterate what these guys said. Talking with the farmers, they obviously are currently talking that, they wish they would have planted more soybean because they're going to get more money on their soybeans than they are their corn. So there's that conversations that are going on. And then the manufacturers, for the most part, we have a few that are being affected by the tariffs, but for the most part, actually, some of them actually have benefited with, because of what they make. They don't have that competition coming from China as much. So, and then obviously we are highly Hispanic as well. We have some Burmese, and so I guess Latino would be politically correct. So we too mainly haven't heard a lot of problems as far as immigration goes. Obviously, they're all probably nervous. I mean, they're kind of a community that kind of keep to themselves. But we too working on the language barrier mainly. You have a lot of adults that don't necessarily speak English, but the children do. So just trying to get to each of those age groups and getting them acclimated to our community and ingraining them as best we can.
So Corey, do you guys get affected by any of the tariffs or anything, or you guys are self-contained? Get the corn, make the chips, ship them out.
There you go.
That's pretty accurate. All of our corn comes pretty locally, Sydney, Illinois, and I've seen the farmers that grow that corn that comes to our plant, and potatoes are all nationally grown as well. So I've not seen an increase in our commodity prices, and I haven't yet seen any increase in our parts prices either. But that may take time for that to impact our parts, because we do get parts from overseas.
So we're towards the end of our discussion. But if you were to have, if you were to say, here is one idea that I'd like to see implemented that'll help my region, what would that be? What is the one idea? Forget resources for now. Just say, here is an idea. If that happened, it'll help all our local manufacturers. It'll help the local community. We'll be more competitive. What might that be?
For Benton County, I would say that, honestly, I think I'm really intrigued by the whole, the sensor stuff. I'm really curious to see how that would work. Angus and Steve, you guys met with some of our local manufacturers, and they kind of looked like, when you guys asked the question as far as, sensors, how would that help? And they're kind of looking at each other like, not really sure. I would really love to see that grow in our county. I think that would be, Frito-Lay, you guys are probably all about that stuff. We have, we're back in the Stone Age almost compared to what you guys are, so I don't want to talk bad about our guys. But realistically, I would really, that's where I'd love to see how that would, and that in the farming community too.
I think tearing down the walls of territorial walls and the silos that get built in smaller communities and rural communities, and understanding how important regionalism really is, and being able to connect. When we talk to a site selector, and I think my counterparts here would agree, they don't care if it's on this side of the road or that side of the road. Is the water there? Is there utilities there? Is the workforce there? And so they don't necessarily come in and look for a county and say how they can improve the county as much. Does this make sense for their business? And we have to look at that. Does that make sense also for our community? And does it make sense for our region? So I think the opportunity of shrinking our region and becoming more a family and creating this dynamic that we all are in this thing together. And I think that where IoT will make a huge impact is that focus on IoT, the Internet of Things, whether it be sensors or next generation manufacturing or digital agriculture, or those community impact projects. All of those focuses that WHIN is focusing on, I think are going to make us a better region, and I think it's going to make us a more robust region in the long run. But at the same time, I think it's going to make us a smaller region in the sense that we're going to know each other and we're going to work hard for each other as a family.
So obviously that's an important one, but I would say in Cass County, we're a large county, large rural county outside of Logansport. So I think broadband would be beneficial to everybody. I mean, that would be helpful to the students. It would be helpful to our farmers. It'd be helpful. Most of our industries probably have decent capabilities, but not, I hear 5G is going in Indianapolis. Wouldn't that be spectacular throughout the entire county? Can you imagine? So I guess just having the capabilities just to have access would be a great start. 5G or whatever it ends up being by the time we get there would be phenomenal too. But I'd say broadband.
I would say 4G would be phenomenal. At least for part of the
And
county.
I want an automated lane on 65 so that we can just put folks in the autonomous vehicles and just get them back to different places in the region. That would be a great.
So I hear Elon Musk is building the boring machine
Yeah, there we
with
go.
a hyperloop that'll get lickety split. You go
Yeah,
through the
yeah.
entire state like 10 times in
There
a
we
minute.
go.
So anyway, are there any other questions for our speakers? Yes.
This is for Corey. Obviously, Frito-Lay is a fairly large manufacturer and has a support staff, engineering staff that can come up with this project idea. But do you have any recommendations for smaller companies that maybe don't have an engineering staff and maybe the owner or top management has to come up with an idea of how to get started with the technology change?
So we do have engineering staff at our headquarters group, but really where we found a lot of success in how we finally overcame the bottleneck that I shared is we brought in many other vendors and contractors in and asked them for support on how to figure out a solution. And then we could buy their equipment through that with their solution in mind. So we actually brought in companies like Dematic, NCC, Haskell is an engineering firm, JMP and Icon Robotics. We brought those groups in and some other groups that didn't end up getting work, but we brought those groups in and asked for their help to go solve this problem, and it was in their interest to solve it. Because they would get the work if we approved their solution.
Okay, any other questions? Okay, Steve just told me that they're aware that the room is pretty cold. This is not intentional, but but remember, Purdue is this gigantic organization, so by the time somebody adjusts the heat, it might be the end of the day. However, they've given us priority, so they're going to try to fix it. The food will be ready in 2 minutes, but I want to take the opportunity to thank all the speakers in the panel. Thank Corey, Shan, Christy, and Paul. Our purpose in hearing at the county level of the challenges and thinking about how automation is being adopted is to get all of us to engage in a conversation as to how do we communicate the upside of technology and the opportunities afforded by it. I think it is the sort of from a business perspective, there is this reality that when you invest in this automation and become more efficient, that efficiency should be manifest in one of two things. You have less labor cost or you grew the business, one of the two. And if one of that, and that is a reality, the question is how that can be communicated so everybody realizes that whoever remains within the system ends up at a better place, the community overall becomes a better place, etc. Now, this clearly is a very sort of Pollyanna view of technology, but unless there is a path that described, with everybody being an opportunity to go up that path, I think it has the potential to create a lot of anxiety. And I think for us as educators and all of you as industry and community representatives, this is an opportunity to tell the story in a way that it's a positive. Of course, if you're trained as an engineer, as I am and many other people are, you sort of have bought into, you've drunk that Kool-Aid and you realize that all of this is efficiency is going to be this driver. But it's not an automatic, as we've seen in the conversations that are happening. And I think that, however, locally, there is the hope that, as an ecosystem, we can create the smart ecosystem, and that will generate a sort of what they call a positive externality, if you're using an economist term. So with that, we're going to break for lunch. Please remember that after lunch, we have a wonderful slate of speakers. So we look forward to having you enjoy lunch, meet some of our students and the other participants, and we'll reconvene at 1:20. And lunch is... Okay, so the way you're going to see lunch is you see that little partition closing, and you see lunch sitting behind that partition. So that's where lunch is. The facilities are just outside. Any of you interested in seeing the engagement center where we're creating a little place where you can look at different technologies, please just go to one of our students. They'll walk you over and walk you back. So see you back here at 1:20. Thanks again to the panel.